think Lisa dropped off.
Don't forget to record.
No, she's here. Both Lisas are here. Jeff is here.
Somebody dropped off.
Phil and both Daves.
Yeah, last one.
Okay, we are
That
recording.
was an important one to record.
Yeah. All right. So we're here for the special meeting. I don't know if everybody heard, we're going to limit the meeting till 9 o'clock tonight. An hour on contract procedures, and then we'll do an hour on committee expenditures. And just really try to be cognizant of everybody that's on the screen. Raise your hand, keep it up, and we'll get you.
Who's that in the middle?
So who's that in the middle? That's
Lisa.
Dave Edgington.
Okay.
So Lisa, do you want to start roll call?
Sure. Lori,
Here.
Jeff, Lisa, myself, I'm here. Craig,
Yep.
Evelyn,
Yep.
Chris Papalizio is absent. Dave Edgington,
Here.
Dave Giroux,
Here.
Julia,
Here.
Craig. Did I say Craig? I'm
But I'll be
sorry.
here for two of us. That's fine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And Evelyn,
Yeah.
we also have properties. Phil Sabo. We got
Hi, Phil.
Reeve. And then treasurer, Lisa Hober. And a piece. We're good.
Okay. So, essentially, we want to talk about contracts and how we prioritize them, how we manage them. Recently, we talked about the last contract that was signed had an Exhibit B that most of us don't know where it came from. And subsequently, I've also found an Exhibit A attached to some of the contracts, not all of them. So I think those are two documents we can circulate and kind of look at. We don't have to look at them now tonight, but you know, they're on the drive and I can circulate them to everybody. Everybody could take a look at them. That would be great. Comment on the Exhibit A's and Exhibit B's, and then I'll ship them off to our attorney to make sure that they're still in compliance with everything that we do and what we particularly need Exhibit A and or Exhibit B for. Because
Sorry, which driver, where on the drive are those?
well, these are just ones that I printed out. They're attached to two of the properties contracts. So, and you know, it could be other places too, but we don't have a beat on who created them and how old they are or where they came from. So if everybody could look at those, that would be great. If you want me to send out, this is the two I'm looking at are actually the biodetention basin. That one and landscaping contract. So both of these have A and B on them.
From last year.
No, they're current. This one is the landscaping contract from 2022 to 2027.
Okay.
And the biodetention is basically
Yeah, it was a
the
building.
same.
Yeah, that's a one-time thing, right? But
No, this is ongoing landscape upkeep.
Got it.
For the biodetention. So
Lori, do we
Yeah.
require any sort of tax ID and or insurance as part of this process?
So we do, we have a tax exempt,
No. I mean, but from the supplier vendor
Yes, we do require insurance certificate.
and a tax ID of some sort or,
W-9.
yes.
okay.
So I think if we come up with, obviously we have to find out what these writers are and what their legitimacy is. Lisa. Can't hear you, honey.
Why do, shush, shush, shush. Why do we need a W-9 for, I understand why we would need it for some people, but not all people, right?
Correct, correct. Um,
How many contracts do we have? Like how many contracts do we have active right now?
well, in properties alone, I think we have like 4, including the addition, the addendum, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, the bio. Corinne, and Elquick, I think has 3 maybe?
And are they all the same contract but just different? Like, is the contract written specifically for the job? So is the landscaping contract written specifically for the landscaper and the
Yes.
biodetention specifically for the biodetention?
Yes. Yes, however, the
So how do we not know
writers,
who wrote them if one was signed in 2023? Because we just used the boilerplate from what we've had in the
Yes,
past.
yeah.
well,
So what I'm getting at is, why review what we have? Why not just figure out what we need and write new contracts?
because if you read these and I mean, this is contracted to 2027.
Sure.
If you read them, they're legalese. So somebody ran these through
Somebody wrote
legal
them,
process.
and we don't know where, no,
And our lawyer doesn't know?
Well, I didn't ask him yet. The first time we saw it was on Phil's contract and we asked him about it and
Right.
he didn't know where it came from
Right,
either.
right.
Just that it's a writer.
Okay.
So,
and we required it on the pickleball.
right.
We're like, gotta have this, gotta have that. And
Sorry,
it's like, we don't even know where it came from.
So all I'm saying is just everybody take a look at them, both of the exhibits. And if you have any comments or, anything that you want to say on them, send it to me. And I'll also include that with sending these to the attorney and asking him, just to, take a look and let us know if we're still in the right area with these.
Do you want a time frame on that, Lori, when you want those comments or questions to you?
Well, I mean, we're obviously trying to get this done because we have a contract coming up June 30th. So we need something in place. We need to know, are we gonna put these writers on that contract or not?
So I guess my question is, none of us are contract writers. Well, I'm not. You are, right?
yeah.
So not all of us have the expertise.
Right, I've written contracts too.
Sure, I mean, and I've signed them and read them, but why are we all going to provide feedback when can't we just have the people who have the expertise in that say this is the way a contract should be written?
Well, I think, Craig, because we're a board of 9 and we all come from different,
Sure, but you're going to have people who have no idea. I mean, I had some semblance of idea,
Yeah.
and I won't speak for anybody else, but if somebody has no idea what a contract should say or shouldn't say, or what words should be used or shouldn't be used, then why do we want their feedback?
because it's the perfect venue for everybody to understand.
Okay.
So if you have a question that you wouldn't normally ask if you knew contracts, well, now you'll get the answer.
Okay, but if it's all going to be vetted up through our lawyer anyways, then does it really?
Still a question you may have,
Okay.
right?
I guess if you want to input,
Okay.
I guess you're giving everyone an opportunity to give
Sure,
input,
okay.
I
That's fine.
guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what she says.
All right.
I mean, I appreciate all the 9 and Lisa too, because she works with our finances, but I appreciate all of the input in everybody's eyes and everybody looking.
Okay.
But I can understand Craig's point because you said it needs to be expeditious relative to June and you still have to go out for contract. If you need expedience and Julia is, the resident authority on that, questions are good. But if you appoint people that, are actually going to be the funnel up, I think it makes it easier and more expeditious.
Well,
I have a question. Isn't the contract language going to vary each time we develop a contract with a supplier?
and I would think so, Dave, but it hasn't. So,
That's because they're not reading the paper then.
Yes.
right.
Right,
So
right,
So-
exactly.
Lisa Sobey, to your point, if everybody could have their comments and questions by the next board meeting, if you don't have time and you don't want to look into it and you don't have questions or comments, don't. So the next board meeting is 2 weeks from now.
Okay. And I think it's two different things, right? So Craig was talking about, it's more like the mechanics of a contract, which I wouldn't know either. Or the substance or the essence of the contract, which I think anyone can kind of read and glean from that and ask questions.
So I think, for instance, yes, I agree with you, Lisa. So to what Dave was asking about the requirements for contracts, we require insurance. We require licenses. If there's needed permits. And that depends on the jobs that are being done. If it's putting sand on the beach, we need a permit to do that. If it's, and that's not necessarily the contractor's, responsibility for that. That might be ours. But it is going to differ for all the different contracts.
Lori, let me ask you, as far as the sand goes, I mean, Phil's going to agree with me, but we have a permit. We don't have a contract. We have a permit for the town of East Haddam for each beach. So that's something that the town of East Haddam has developed. That's nothing that they're just giving us permission to do it. It's not a contract on our part.
No, I know, but I was just saying, for instance, if we need a permit, I know it's not a part of a contract, but it's part of a procurement of sand. It's a process for obtaining sand. We have to get a permit for it.
We have we have a permit that we've had for a long time now. Phil's using the same permit that I used when I was running properties. It was issued by the town of East Haddam, probably,
Oh, we did?
I don't know, who knows, maybe in the 90s, maybe in the 80s, I don't know.
It was 2000. We did it when I started the Lake BOG. I started with the town as a standing permit. Jim confirmed that in a conversation recently. I think Dave Drew, I sent you that email, right? Didn't
I wasn't looking, to tell you the truth.
Oh yeah.
I think I have paper.
I have a question related to insurance. Is there a minimal amount of insurance that we're going to require?
Right, so in the riders, Dave, it says it, but we don't know if those are enough, or if they're, is it based on, how much the contract is? We don't know.
Shouldn't be. I mean, if just, for example, if you had an electrician and the electrician burnt down a building, the value of the contract is meaningless, the value of the building. And so therefore, typically, what I know historically is we've required minimum insurance values. Now, you may have to pay more for that, but I mean, it's a decision, I guess, on the board's part as to what they want the minimum insurance to be.
Agreed. And I know that you've been browsing our insurance policies also.
Yeah, I mean, our liability insurance for the association is $1 million in occurrence, okay? But do I think that every supplier that comes onto the property has to have $1 million worth of insurance? No. But do I think they should have 50,000, 100,000, $250,000? Yes.
Right, and I think one of the exhibits, Exhibit B that we looked at, does have the requirements for those things, but do we require the same amount from each vendor? Is it depending on what they do? I don't know. And are those numbers still adequate?
So I did this for a while. Historically, where I worked, we had the same requirements for everybody. Because the minute you walked onto our property, you were a risk to the organization.
Well, that makes sense. It does make so maybe these Exhibit A's and Exhibit B's are what we use standard for contracts, but I still think we need to have them. We don't know where they came from, if they still, coincide with our insurance, and how does that work? I'm kind of almost thinking like ours is almost like an umbrella, where when they come on, they're insuring themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And I mean, just jumping ahead, to my mind, before we sign the contract, we should be validating that that insurance exists, whatever the minimum is that we want.
Agreed.
I think Lisa has a question.
So I'm just looking at the agenda
Mhm.
that you put together, Lori, which you did a fabulous job. And it sounds like we're talking about the second bullet, so document requirements for contracts. Do we want to just start listing that out now? I mean, I know we're talking about insurance, we're talking about permits.
Yeah,
Do we want to maybe kind of go through those bullets?
What else is there? There's permits
well,
and
licenses,
Licenses.
Right, but that's
licenses,
like that.
permits. You know, and sometimes, depending on what it is, we need deep approval. Sometimes, you know, but you got to make sure that we're following all of those, processes and we know when we need those or don't need those. Does anybody else have anything that, for document requirements? Anybody else have anything off the top of their head? I want to go back and actually I should have printed out the one for the tennis pickleball and everything everybody wanted on that one.
Do you want me to?
Everybody meaning us or everybody meaning those people?
Everybody that was,
On the board at the time had a lot of requirements. Told us, you want me to pull it up or you should conduct
Yeah,
the meeting?
yeah.
Okay.
And Phil, Dave, from your experience, what else would you say was needed
Well,
based on the years that you've done properties?
So, after you get to the bidding process, okay, and then you're like, typically, historically, what I've looked at is, and it depends on the threshold at how much effort you're going to put into it. But if I was doing the tennis courts, for example, which is what, a $20,000 contract, I would want to understand the references on that supplier, as well as, what the financial risks look like on that supplier. And also, do they have the proper insurance and things? Because they could come in and do half that job and walk away, and you've got half a job and no recourse.
Well, your recourse is you don't pay them until they're done.
Yeah, and how would insurance have anything to do with them walking away? I lost.
No,
that.
it wouldn't. It wouldn't. But if
Yeah,
if they came in and did half the job, for example,
Right.
okay, and then they went bankrupt at the halfway point, they're not going to ever get that money no matter what. They would just stop work, and you would have the work half done.
Yeah, but a contract isn't going to help you there.
No, it's not.
what is,
But if you did the financial analysis before, you would know if they were at risk.
I mean,
I think you're asking people to do way too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
we're getting way
I mean,
out of
you
proportion.
asked me. I was asked. Historically, what I see.
Yeah.
I know, but we're not Pratt and Whitney hiring subcontractors or lesser boat. I mean, we can really go crazy with this. We need to funnel down and deal with the practical world. That's my
Keep
opinion.
it simple.
Just really keep it simple. This is where the business world comes in versus the corporate world.
Okay.
Dave?
Yeah.
Dave Giroux,
Yes.
do you could you maybe write up a little bit of bullet and then maybe we can, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put it together, and you can call out what you don't like.
I think that would work out great. I think Lisa Sobey was asking Dave Edgington and Phil if they thought of any other requirements.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
No.
That's great.
Appreciate.
No, I don't. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. No.
Is there anything a lawyer would say that we wouldn't say? Like, why aren't we just having our lawyer write these contracts?
No. Oh,
Why?
why would we? Why
Well,
would
I'm asking the question, why wouldn't we? I mean, a contract has to have very specific things. And anybody who writes contracts knows what they are. So why don't we just have our lawyer draft up a contract that does everything that we want it to do? And
This may be what he
This is
did.
Yeah,
We don't
She's
know.
just trying to find out what the source of
All
this
right.
is. We don't know where it came from,
okay.
and if we should even be using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think she's just. I don't want to speak for you, but you're just asking for input from everybody. You're giving everybody an opportunity,
Yep.
input or not, and then she's going to send. You said you were going to send it to the attorney.
Yeah.
To make sure it's still
Yeah.
something that we want.
And then we will come up with a specific procedure, and this is what we use, and this is not what we use.
Got
But we're asking Dave Giroux to do is, since this is his wheelhouse, to write something up. And then if we find that there's, too much stringency or he brings up something that maybe we don't do and maybe we want to put into process, I think it would be great.
Plus, it's not in your budget to run to the attorney for every time you want.
That's right.
It's not in your budget.
So which is why we'll send them a fully complete, if there's questions or whatever. So as far as document requirements for contracts go, does anybody have anything else? Are you raising your hand, Phil? Yes.
You're on mute, Phil. Phil, you're on mute.
You're muted. You're muted.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. I mean, as far, you're looking at contracts, and I think there are different types of contracts. You have your long-term contracts.
Yep.
You have your one and done contracts, and then you have your entertainment contracts. I mean, so anything, I mean, every time we have a band, do we have to have them sign a waiver for insurance and all that stuff? Is that where we're going with all this, or?
I think that's been in place for quite some time. We're looking at all contracts, so it will come down to looking at that too, and reviewing what that says and requires.
Well, there's a lot of smart people in this room right now, and it's just sometimes you confuse things and you make things more what's the word I'm looking for? Complicated than you need to. I believe, this is my opinion only. We've had John Allegra do a lot of work for us over the years. Again, it was a gentleman's handshake. I think if you complicate things, it's going to, again, we are all volunteers, and to do that extra legwork, I think is, depending on what you're looking for. I think you have to, I think somebody said it, scale back, just like Jeff said it. We're a little community here. And yes, we have liabilities. I understand that. But
we have a responsibility to the community, and that's what we're trying to do, is be responsible to the community. That's all. Every now and again, which no one on this board seems to know where these came from. So we're talking years here that those have been looked at. So, and that's just the exhibits. The other contracts, who knows? None of us on this board know. So we're re-examining if we're protecting the association like we're supposed to be doing. That's what we're doing.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's up to you guys.
Okay. Any more on the contracts?
Nope.
So bidding requirements and dollar threshold. So over the years, and you can find them on the drive under financial policies. Since I've been involved, there's been numbers strong. There used to be $3,000 was the threshold for a 3-bid policy. Somewhere along the line, and I think it was 2016. I don't know. Like I said, they're on the drive, and it was pulled out of minutes when these things were booked, and somewhere it went up to a $5,000 threshold in which we would require 3 bids. What I learned in the last 6 months or so, those financial policies that were put in place were voted on by the membership, and it is non-binding. So what we want to do as a board is set thresholds and bidding requirements. They will be put on the drive under financial policies, and they will be binding. So the next board that comes will follow those and annually update those as they see necessary. But at least there'll be something in writing, and then everybody has a process to follow.
Was there something in the budget committee last year that said because we're a special taxing district, there are certain rules that had to be followed when it comes to bidding?
No,
Do you remember anything from that?
no, not that.
All right.
No, but if there was, so there was talk, there was a recommendation last year, but from the budget committee that all contracts that require a bidding process have at least one board member. If it's a chairperson that's going out for these bids, at least one board member and that chairperson do the bidding. Or if it's a board member that's bidding, it's two board members. So there's always two people. We're kind of fluid on this board. We get people that stay for a year. We get people that stay for 9 years, 10 years. So you lose a lot of that along the way. So to have two people, just for that reason alone, helps us.
That was a recommendation from the budget committee.
Yes,
It was never anything that,
Right, that's Craig was asking about recommendations.
Yeah, but what you're talking about is people involved in the bidding process.
Yes,
What I'm talking about is if we're going out for contract, was there anything in the rules that said we had to get multiple bids from vendors?
well, that's what I'm talking about. That's what the membership voted on,
Was that we are supposed to or we're not?
that we are supposed to.
Okay, and then there's no threshold.
There was a $5,000 threshold.
Okay.
However, in communicating with the attorney 6 months ago, he said to me, Lori, that's not binding at all. The membership does not create financial policy.
That's what you meant by, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Board of Governors creates financial policy. So he said to me, so it's up to the membership to make sure who they're voting in on the board that would be fiduciarily responsible to make sure that these financial policies were in place.
Got it.
And that's,
Lori,
none of the members even.
yes, Lisa.
Yeah.
Lori, it wasn't like fiduciarily irresponsible to have been following that policy of $3,000 up until the board voted to push it up to 5,000. It wasn't an irresponsible. It was just,
Right.
you're just talking about legality. It was a good practice. So call it a policy or whatever you want. It was a good practice. It protected everybody concerned, whether you were getting the bids, whether you were paying the bids. It protects everybody. A package comes in. This is what I have to pay. It's already been blessed by a board or whatever. It was a good practice. So let's not focus on that. It was not binding. Let's just say it was a good practice, but it has to be tabled in a different manner.
Agreed. I was just trying to give Craig some backup, Lisa, of why.
Yeah.
Why?
I just wanted to like throw my backup in there.
Important. It isn't, to me, it's important that everybody understand that it needs to be the board that makes the financial policies.
Okay, so we have rules in place that were voted in by the membership and they're non-binding, so now we want to bind them by making it board approved.
Well, we can board approve them and or reset or set, whatever you want to call
Got
it.
it.
We need to make official financial policies. I don't know if everybody read the final document of the bylaws, but we put in the bylaws, we referenced the financial policies for every board to review annually and update as necessary, and that they will be on the drive under financial policies. So it's in the bylaws now, or it will be if bylaws get voted through.
So what do we think the threshold should be then for a
So-
binding threshold? So is there any rhyme or reason to 3,000 or 5,000? I guess the question I would ask is, what are the contracts that we have? And what are the price ranges of the contracts that we have? Obviously, garbage is a big one. Landscaping is a big one.
Porta potties.
Those all
We have
exceed,
late quality.
Was that 10?
those all
Very,
exceed,
Yeah.
those all, I mean, they're all pretty high.
Yeah.
I like a lower threshold, like around 5, because we only have $250,000.
Right.
Not even
Okay.
$230,000 operating budget.
So I think 5 is, I mean, we should be looking at stuff. I don't know. Just my opinion. I don't
No,
think
I
it should be
agree.
10. I don't think it should be 20.
No, I don't either.
I think it should be lower, like the 5 it is. I like the 5 personally, but
I have no problem with the 5.
I agree with the 5.
We've been operating with the 5 for a while now.
Right. We want to make it official, Dave.
Right. Yeah, that's fine.
That's why he's saying 5.
Make it official.
So if it's 5, then the question is now we have to go out above 5 and above, we have to go out and get 3 bids, or we have to make an attempt to get bids. Is that right? And then how do we attempt to do that? Is it somebody making calls, or is it us putting an ad in the newspaper that satisfies the?
So now that's another.
Depends on what you're talking about.
What?
Depends on what you're trying to bid.
Right.
What does that mean, Dave?
I don't know if I agree with that. I think you can pretty much get 3 bids on whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, but it becomes too cumbersome. That's why we set the $5,000
Right.
limit.
I'm not
Yeah.
disputing the 5K.
Because
No.
Just
Go ahead.
because it gets to the point where, and I don't know from experience, but we have somebody who does a job and has been doing a job really well, and there's no reason to change them, but their price went up. So now do you just go out and get 2 more bids just to satisfy people when you're going to pick the highest bid anyways, because it's the one that you know does a good job?
No.
So how do you avoid that?
So
Time out a minute. Nobody says you have to pick the highest bid. You pick whichever bid you think is the best one for you.
But now it gets to the point where now you've got a situation where you know the vendor you're going to choose anyways, and nothing that anybody else is going to say or do or undercut is going to change that. So now we have to go through the legwork of doing it, which is why it comes back to, do I actually have to go and call 3 companies and put out requests for proposals? Or do I just
so in the scenario you're suggesting, Craig, why wouldn't we have like a bid waiver process? If that's what, I mean, if you want to go with the incumbent, why don't you have a bid waiver process then?
So,
because we keep wavering everything.
right. So
So then we're just working around the SOPs that we put in place. But if we say you put an ad in the newspaper or put it out on your website or do a whole host of things that are easy and can be done in 10 seconds, then you've at least done your job. And you can go back to your membership and you say, this is our process, this is what we did, and we did it. Versus this is our process, but we allow ourselves a waiver and we took the waiver every time.
so it's due diligence, right?
Exactly.
So due diligence, number 1, and number 2, and I'm going to use our waste management. We know Chris does a marvelous job. He gives us a good price. And he knows that we come back to him every contract because of that. However, he also needs to know that we're making sure that he's staying in the ballpark. So it keeps him honest too. When we say, all right, yep, we're gonna, entertain other bids.
But just because we entertained a bid doesn't keep him accountable to anything. He's going to charge what he charges.
Correct. But he knows that we're making sure we're staying current.
Okay.
Look this way, Lori. Phil's had his hand up for a while.
Sorry.
It's all right. As far as the waste management, I believe we're paying roughly $45,000 a year in that ballpark. I had Jansky last year price it out for us. He gave me a price of $83,000. To me, I do it. It's what I do. It's what I do. And I believe I conveyed that to the board when I did get that price. Chris gives us he does a very good job. People like him. And like I said, I do my due diligence of getting the best price. I treat that as my home, the lake. I treat it as my home, and I go out and I get all kinds of bids, and I talk to different people about things before things happen. So, to me, when you have a good deal going down, especially with the lake quality, I don't think they can find anybody else, so they have to use that company, I believe.
No, she's looking elsewhere.
She's looking elsewhere.
They hold our permit.
They hold the permit, so
The company holds the permit.
right. But I mean, and I'll go back to even where Tim Pelton was when he was president for quite some time here, and I went to him last year and I said, Tim, I want to go to Jansky for a price for rubbish. And he looked at me, he says, What's wrong with you? You're looking for trouble. You're looking for trouble. This is coming from Tim Pelton. He goes, if you go out and get a price, and if Chris hears about it, there could be, I know how Chris operates also. People have dropped Chris and realized that they made the mistake. Companies tried to call him back, and he will not come back. I'll tell you that right now. If it ever happened, Chris will not come back. So I'm just trying to point out that, again, we're a small community. Simple is better sometimes. I'm going to use this again. Common sense. It makes sense. We all have a lot, there's a lot of book smart people out there, but there's a lot of people out there that have common sense, street smarts. And, you got to put everybody together. And hopefully we come up with a good solution here and not wreck what we have.
What you're saying, Phil, is if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
To a certain extent, yeah, yes, yes.
And the other side of that, Phil, is that you won't piss Chris off if you say, we have due diligence that we have to do, but we'd like to keep the relationship with you, and we do our due diligence. I think if we handle that the right way with any vendor, whether it's Chris or Nancy or anybody, I think that they're going to be mad that we have SOP in place, and it's just a formality that we have to get through, which goes back to the whole waiver process. And
yeah, I mean that's what
this is what we do.
Relative to the waiver process. Okay, just to use the waste management thing as an example, if we know right now that we want to sign that contract again in the end of June, then maybe we put a timeline in place that says, if 2 months in advance that you want to go with the same supplier, and you know that the pricing is fair and reasonable, then you come to the board 2 months in advance and say, I want a waiver. Here's the justification. The other guy wanted $83,000. And $45,000 is a much better price, and here's the services we're getting. And then the board can decide 2 months in advance, yes or no.
Right.
Sure, Dave, but the only thing there is that if you're going for a waiver, you wouldn't have gone out and got other quotes. The whole point of getting a waiver is that you just want to keep what you know.
Well, no, I mean, why do you have?
Oh, it's what Dave's saying. It's you get those other quotes and you say, well, let me waive those. I still want to stay with this contractor.
Well, that's not what and Lisa, I know Lisa's got her hand raised, but I just want to make sure we get this out there, because my understanding of the waiver was that the whole point of having a waiver is we're not going to go out to bid and get more quotes.
Right.
And what Dave Giroux just said is, well, here's the reason for the waiver is we got another quote, it was $84,000, and that's the justification for getting the waiver. Well, no, because the waiver comes before you go out and get more quotes.
That's right.
Because you can pick the lowest bid, you can pick the highest bidder anyways, because you're doing what's right.
Right.
I know. It doesn't necessarily have, I'm sorry, Lisa. It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal bid. I mean, Phil maybe has a formal bid, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But he's using that for rationale as to why it's fair and reasonable.
All right, let's let Lisa get her comment.
All right, Lisa.
I just want to say the intent is never to shop Chris out of business or Chris out of our community, because Chris does a great job. And but I think standard operating procedure would dictate that you do get the bids. And you know what? You're going to get that guy someday who comes in at 55,000 and maybe he's got a perk. We're still not going to go, or maybe we go with a guy. If Chris even goes over, we would still go with Chris, because any big company we know is going to come in and lowball it for the contract for that contract and then jack it up. And we're smart people. We know that. But standard operating procedure is just that. I'm with Craig. I don't think Chris would take offense to it. I think it can be worded. I don't know but to get those contracts just keeps it right. It keeps it right. And we are small. That is the one contract that I think that everybody agrees that, even if it came in X amount of dollars higher, we're still going with him, because we know we're not going to get wrecked in 3 years after the contract with XYZ company comes in. So, but I do think that standard, just to have the contract process, if you're going to do a contract process, let's pick one and stick with it, because it's been willy-nilly, and I don't want it to be willy-nilly going forward. From my perspective, when I pay a bill, I don't want it to be willy-nilly.
please.
Time check, we got 15 minutes left on contracts.
No.
Oh, I thought we went to the next piece. Shit.
No.
What's the dollar threshold? Are we
So-
voting on it?
5,000.
So I
Keep
think,
it at 5.
I think we're all in agreement that we're gonna go with the 5,000 and stay with the 5,000.
Yeah.
Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So can I just ask one question? I want to be very clear about this because I was confused. If the job costs less than $5,000, there's no need to get bids. Is that what we're saying? I'll say if I'm in Phil's position and I have some tree work that has to be done, and it comes in at $3,900, you just hired a guy and pay him. Is that what we're saying?
Oh, I would think that would come out. I'm sorry, Lori, I'm going to answer that. That would come out. That would be a conversation that would probably happen. I'm saying the $5,000 should be, for the standard operating procedure. If it comes out in conversation that there's a project and it's a competitive field like tree cutting, and this guy will do it for $3,900. Well, maybe somebody through that conversation says, well, maybe wait a minute, maybe we don't have to do all those trees this year. Maybe somebody says, well, the budget is this or the budget. I mean, that comes out in a conversation. Those projects come out in a conversation, and it might be that like, hey, your guy will do it for 39. I know a guy who would do us a solid. He might come in cheaper. So it doesn't need a contract, but it has to come out in conversation that, a job in the thousands of dollars should be discussed rather than, but the $5,000 threshold I get. So
Okay, but we're not being clear here. Okay.
I'm being ambiguous because I don't want someone to come in at $4,500 and say, okay, no contract, but that's a lot of money.
All right, but we set $5,000.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not very often you're around $5,000, but I'm just looking at some of these smaller price projects. I just feel like we're tying somebody's hands if we have to get 3 bids every single time. He's going to do a job that may come in at 3,000, may come in at 2,800 or 3,500. Who knows?
okay, so let's let
Part of having a manager, all right, is to let him manage. And I think if you're telling him if it's more than $5,000, you have to get bids, that's fine. But if it's less than $5,000, you shouldn't have to get bids.
let Julia have her comment, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the $5,000 for this, the 3 bids for $5,000 is, we are accountable. All of us are accountable to the membership, but not one person has the authority to spend any money. We're accountable to each other. So we can have this bid process, if it's over 5,000. Lisa Grace is a very good point. It's very gray area, but the 9 of us are accountable to one another. And we need to, any project comes forth, like if Phil has tree work, we should be, as our bylaws say, with the consent and advice of the board. We all need to be talking about these projects. It can't just be one person deciding. And so I think as we all are accountable to one another, and then the 9 of us are accountable to our membership.
But then the question,
I don't agree with you on that.
the question becomes, I think, Dave, you're probably going to touch on this, is that, if it's tree work, who's deciding whether it's important or not? Because it's not our expertise, it's Phil's area. So if Phil says this is important and this is what it's going to cost.
It's not my, excuse me, I'm going to interrupt.
But it falls in your purview of
He at least has to come to the board and tell us about it.
Sure.
So we know about it.
Sure, but does he have to get approval?
Yes.
Is there?
Yes.
And what I was saying before is that's separate from the 5,000,
Yes.
which is being accountable to our membership, and that's in writing, and that's what it is. But then there's a separate process that we all have to undertake if we have money to spend,
Okay.
and there's a certain amount of money, like. If I have to go to a store and I have to buy $150 worth of stuff, can I just go do that, or do I have to tell everybody, hey, I'm going to go spend $150?
Right.
Hold on, wait. So we're going to back up a little bit. For the last 3 years, I've been on the budget committee. And for the last 2 summers, I dedicated my entire summers to the budget committee. And that budgeting was done based on what was requested by each of the committees. We scrutinized, we spent a lot of time, and to just say that any committee can spend whatever they want because that's their budget now, that's kind of a slap in the face to the budget committee, because we spent a lot of time. The budget committee reports to the board and says, this is what we came up with. So the board is expecting these things to be done. When other things are done that were never even brought to the board or the budget committee, but yet we're responsible to report to the membership, That's not okay.
So how was a budget set? Was it set based off of the person who's running the
The
whatever?
committee, yeah.
So
they-
set up the committee and they come up with a number and they didn't line item everything.
They line item everything and they come to the budget committee and the budget committee.
So that is the
goes-
rule. If it's not on that line item that we initially gave the budget for, then it has to be approved.
It
Or if
should
it is
be,
there,
yeah, 'cause-
then it's within their.
No.
Why come to the budget committee and say, I need 5,000 for this, 2,000 for that,
Right,
1,000 for
but what
this,
I'm-
and then you spend it
sure,
on something
but-
entirely different.
But let me just say, 6 months later, the prices of all those things are different. Wait, the prices are different. And I know I'm making the number up. I know I have $20,000 to spend in these 7 areas. And one of them comes in higher than what it was originally approved for, but I can keep it within my budget because I can trim in other areas. Why do I have to go get budget board approval to do all that?
So I will tell you, once it's approved by the board, that budget goes to the membership and the membership approves it. So the membership is approving what the budget committee and the board approved.
Right.
So when it's looked at by line item, why?
What's the threshold change though? What's the threshold of change before you have to come back and get reapproved? So if something was going to cost me $1,000, now it's going to cost me $1,600.
All right, but we're not talking about the same item that had an increase in expenditure. We're talking a totally different item that was never even brought to the budget committee.
Well, no, I'm talking about.
He's talking about.
I'm
what
talking
was
about
line item.
what
He's
if there's a
talking about
line item
budget.
that because my point is, yes, if something changes and something happens and we say, hey, this wasn't in my initial line item that got approved, I think I can squeeze it into the budget because I can trim in other areas. That's something that there should be board accountability to.
Then
Yes,
then
then
I
they
come
come to the
back to the
board.
board
Okay,
and
But what
say,
I'm talking about is if there's a difference in price in other of those line items.
Yeah.
Do I have to come back because now it's 1,600 instead of 1,000, or can I just spend it and fix it in my budget?
you got.
In other words, what's my response? Like, what's my fiscal responsibility to my budget? Is staying on budget with the things that were approved, right?
With the things that were approved.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes. So.
Look, Lori, we got a couple people. Lisa has her hand up, but I do too.
So my question, thank you, Dave. My question is, when we look at a threshold, we all agreed that it should be 5,000. What exactly does that mean? So when I think of a threshold, regardless of what that dollar amount is, say it's $25, then I would have the ability to say, I have X amount of dollars to do what needs to be done without board approval. So I guess I just need clarification. When we say we have a $5,000 threshold, exactly what does that mean? Because if it's not within the purview of the committee or the person or whomever that has that, and everything needs to come to the board, there's no threshold at all.
Well, all right, so Lisa,
Thresholds for contracts.
the
Three
$5,000
bids.
is for the 3 bid contract policy. So if it's a $5,000 expenditure, you have to get 3 bids. That's what that threshold is.
Okay,
So
thank you. All right.
we're talking any expenditure at this point. If it's not what you've been approved for in your budget, then you need to come to the board and say, hey, I want to spend $2,000 on whatever. I have room in my budget to still accomplish the other things I wanted to accomplish. And I was able to allocate money here or there because I saved here or what have you. You
Lori,
need the board apprised of those things.
what you're talking about is micromanaging. Okay, that's exactly what you're talking about. Because let me tell you, $5,000. I agree. Phil has X amount of dollars in his budget. A budget is a living document. It can change. All right. So we're trusting him as the manager to take care of that budget. But if something comes up that he has to take care of, he shouldn't have to run to the board every time he's got to spend a couple $1,000s. We're trusting him as the manager. All right. And he has a budget. As long as he stays within his budget, he shouldn't have to come kiss the ring to get the money.
But Dave, he's not accountable to the membership. We are.
No, he is. Anybody on the board or anybody in a position is accountable to the membership.
No, but anybody in a position is accountable to them, because if he's accountable to us,
That's right.
he's accountable to
But
them.
And the board and the body approved his budget.
our
Right.
bylaws say he has to have the consent and advice of the board.
Okay,
Everyone will say
That's
that.
what the budget's all about. When August comes and people raise their hand and say, yes, I approve the budget, part of that budget is Phil's piece. Okay. And they're saying, yes, we approve this piece. It's Phil's responsibility to manage that piece. He shouldn't have to come to the board for everything that you all, it's crazy. I think you're micromanaging. I really do. I think it's sad. This board has become really a sad place.
Oh, please.
It has. Don't say, oh, please. It's ridiculous.
I am, because I disagree with you, Dave. I'm going to disagree with you. Now, when this happened at the last board meeting, and I'm sorry, Phil, I know I interrupted. I get that a budget can change, but
Right.
our budget is a legal document. It's not a fluid thing. It's a legal document that you are granted to govern this community by. When you
Right.
sign off on it, it's a serious thing. When they vote on it, that's their faith in you. So
That's
I'm
right.
going to
And
go backwards. When he was doing, wait a minute, I'm not finished. When he was doing, but when Phil was going after the fans, you know, he had somebody that came in over $5,000. So the natural assumption was he was going to go get bids. And then he got a great deal at $3,500. So it was just spent, but the board didn't know anything about it. So that presented some angst.
That's a communication issue.
Yeah, but you know
Right.
what? The board
I'm
did
not
know about that.
finished. But if
All
you're
right.
going to take moments after you said at the last budget meeting, it's Phil's money, he can do whatever he want with it. Moments later, we're talking about we're roping off property because we have liable situations. Emergent work first. And I'm going to say that the board does have a say, because when you go to the board and you say, I'm going to do this tree work, somebody on the board could say, hey, what trees or whatever. When you go to the board and you say, I don't know, I'm going to do anything. Somebody on the board that's what a properties report is for. A properties report is for, Phil's next after me, Craig. Properties report is for communication. And then, yes, that's where the board has consent. They have advice. So it's not just Phil's money to do whatever he wants with, it's for what's best for the community.
Of course. And that's why he's our property manager. But I disagree with you that people knew the fans were Phil's been talking about the fans for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not that he dropped a bomb on us and we didn't know about it. We knew it was coming. He talked about it.
Phil was actually next. I stole his spot.
Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
It's Phil.
Oh, Phil. All right. Whoever.
You know, I've been doing this for 3 years. And the first year, Lee was the treasurer, and Lee ran everything. He did all the contracts. He did everything. And for that, when I took over, it made it hard for me because I could not talk to anybody that we had contract. The United porta potties, they wouldn't even talk to me. They wouldn't listen to me. And as far as budgeting goes, you guys, everybody at the end of the year, it's how much money do we have left? Let's spend it. Do we need to have anything done? But it's not in the budget, but we can get it done. I mean, I know last year we bought 4 tents. I'm sure those weren't in the budget. We bought a fryolator. Oh, let me finish. Could I finish? Please.
Yes.
All right, so there was 4 tents that were purchased that I know of. There was a fryolator that was not in anybody's budget. There was work done down on the dam, on the South End Dam at a tune of $800 that came out of Lake Quality budget that I'm sure was not in the budget, not her budget, the budget. So these things do happen.
Okay. All of those things you just said, the board was made aware of and asked and approved. Some of the other things that occurred and were purchased and bought that were on a larger scale, the board had no clue about any of it. That's not cool.
What are you talking about? Picnic tables?
You know how the board learned about that you put picnic tables on Facebook, Phil? On Facebook. That's how the board learned about
Again, it was a
picnic tables.
communication issue. So why are we rehashing old shit that happened before?
Because it's
Right.
But
Exactly.
it still happens. But it's still a community because there's no there's no process in place.
That's why.
And that's why we're
trying to
here. So we can't talk about the things that happened a week
Right.
ago, 2 weeks ago. We're here to fix those. So let's not stop bringing up the old stuff. What I was going to say about the budget is, and sorry, Phil, we're just kind of using you as the example, but if Phil's budget is $40,000 and there was 10 line items that added up to $40,000, does the membership see every single thing
If they
and
want
every
to,
single cost?
yes, and some
Okay.
do look at it,
Okay,
yes.
and so, and then if they approve, ultimately what they're approving is the $40,000 budget. They aren't approving every little line item because they don't know.
No,
what-
they are, because they voted, they've said before, we don't agree, they did it last year at the annual meeting. They said,
What
we
if-
don't agree with this.
with
When
what?
Phil wanted more money and he couldn't tell us what he wanted it for, the membership voted it down.
But that,
Because there wasn't a line item for it. He couldn't tell us what he wanted for. He couldn't say what he needed it for, and they said no. That happened at the annual meeting.
I don't remember that.
They said no because they didn't want to spend the extra money. That's not, make sure you get it straight now. That's why they said
And
no.
it never came up before the membership to vote on it, because the budget committee only allowed me $40,000, and that was what was voted on. I didn't ask for any more money at that meeting.
You did. And Linda Abel asked you what you would spend it on, and you said a walkway to the
Okay, but to that,
Whatever.
well,
And they
so to
said
come
no.
back to that, there was a document that was sent around saying, what are the projects that you have in your respective committee or your respective areas? And now I'm remembering Phil was talking about, there are repairs that need to happen to the wall. There is a walkway that people have been asking for to go around to the porta potties. And there are all these other things that weren't in his initial budget that he could spend money on if there was money appropriated to that. So if I remember that, Bill, weren't there those three things that I just
You
mentioned?
mentioned that at the thing, and they said,
Right. And they said no. And what did you say? Okay, fine. I just won't get it done.
right, so those
Right?
are,
And
So
what do
I
I
think
always
the
say at the budget meetings, Lori? What do I always say? As far as give me what you want to give me, because if I don't have the money to do anything, my summer is easy. If I have money to spend, I'm gonna work my ass off during the summer. I've always said that. I don't care how much you guys give me. I don't give a shit. I really don't care. You know, but this micromanaging, and I've always been, for the last 3 years, go back to all the board meetings, I overstated my projects until the fan project, because I thought I was in my rights. I still think I was in my rights because it was under the $5,000, and everybody, you guys did know about it. So that's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to finish up with this, then I'm going to leave. If you guys don't want me doing this job, I don't have a problem leaving. You guys, you know, after I leave, you guys take a vote, decide what you want. Because, you know, I enjoy what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. But the nitpick and all this, it's crazy. It's just crazy. I want to have a good summer, and this is not going to be good. So again, if you want me gone, I will be gone. Have a good night, everybody. And let me,
That's not what it's about, Phil.
please let me know.
That's
Who
about-
said it's not?
Question before you go.
Go ahead.
And I think this is a big one, and it's relative to your question. How do you feel about communicating to the board? And I'm not talking about micromanaging. I'm talking about communicating.
Lori, go back to the last 3 years and listen to the meetings. And I always came back to this board, always. I always went to Dave and Gary first. Then I went to the board, and the board always approved it or just said, Phil, you got to do it. Just go do it, Phil. Don't come here no more with this crap. This little, I need garbage bags, or I need this, or I need that. You know, listen, if you don't trust me to do this job, get somebody else.
We're not talking about garbage bags, and you know it.
No, we're talking about picnic tables and fans. Again, if you don't trust me to do this job, let me know, and I'll be happy to go. I'll be happy to go. I enjoy what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. I think the lake is just a little bit, not a lot. It's a little bit better, a little bit cleaner since I've been doing this job. But I'm telling you, I'm up to here. I'm up to here with all this nitpicking crap. You know, right? Even when I did the fans, you guys kind of knew about it. Yes. Did I just go ahead and do it? Yes. Why? Because it's under the $5,000 mark.
Phil, can I ask you something?
I always say that. The picnic
Why didn't you
tables,
just get back to the board?
we needed picnic tables.
He already said why he didn't get back to the board. It was because he thought he was within his rights. So why are we picking on his?
No, I'm asking because when he left the board meeting, he said, obviously I won't do anything till I get back to you guys. This board is very communicative. It would have just taken an email and I think he would have gotten a holy crap. What a great job. Yeah, do that.
At that time, it was $5,600. That's why I said I'll get back to you.
I don't think
So
it's-
I think we've kind of lost
All right,
course.
guys, listen. I'm just gonna
I
say,
thought we were trying to put policy in place.
make up what you want to do. Let me know if you want me to do this job anymore. And we're all gonna have a great summer, whether I'm doing it or not. And I want to thank you all for your time. Have a good night, all. Bye.
It's a communication issue.
And it's not
Plain and
his
simple.
money. It's
Fine,
not,
but
it's
if
not
you're-
anyone's
But you're
money.
focusing on the money, and what I'm focusing on is the fact that there was a communication issue, and he's right about nitpicking, and that's the way he feels. I don't think we're nitpicking. I think we're trying to get procedures out there that we can all agree
And
upon.
we're trying to communicate.
But we're
yes.
communicating, we're bringing up old shit that doesn't need to be brought.
That fan was not old shit. The fan was just happened.
Okay, we're just gonna keep going around. It was he said,
All right.
he said what I thought was
Can we
true,
move
and what
forward?
he said was, I didn't think I had to because it was less than 5,000.
Listen, Craig,
Just saying.
all right, I'm gonna say to you, he started out coming to the board because it was over 5,000.
Can we come back on policy?
Now it's under 5,000. The board does not even know that. We're expecting him to come back with.
I know what we're expecting.
So-
I'm part of the board.
So-
I have expectations
So
too.
he was wrong in
Okay.
the way he did it.
Right, and but
And
that's
he
not the
didn't
focus.
Communicate.
Okay,
That's
so
what
this
I'm
is why
saying.
we're
It was a
having this meeting.
communication issue. Everybody else seems to be thinking it's a financial issue.
A lot of it's communication. Yes.
Well, this
It's
is why
both.
we're having this meeting.
It's both.
Okay, it's both. That's
It is
fine.
both, yeah.
That's
It
fair.
is.
That's fair.
Yes.
But there's no procedure in place.
I know,
That's-
tell you.
that's the one.
So
why are we still talking about it?
That's that procedure.
So
So can I just make one last comment? So I'm listening to everyone and I think everyone has valid points, right? And everyone feels the way that they feel. I do think too that when it comes to the monies that Phil or anyone else gets, that's what Lori was talking about with the budget committee. And so everyone comes to the budget committee saying, I'm leading this part. This is what I think I need. That is the time where that person needs to take a look. Okay, this is the coming year. This is what I need to do. A, B, C, D, and E. All of that's going to cost 40 or 50 or whatever it happens to be. So that I think is the time to hopefully try to think ahead. There's going to be like the erosion. There's going to be some things that are going to just happen. We all know that. But the time to come to the board or to the budget committee with saying, this is what I need, that's the opportunity. And if that's done and thought through, and I'm not saying that it wasn't, I'm just saying that's the time to come to say, this is what needs to get done. I've been doing this for 3 years. I know we need to do X, Y, and Z. Here you go, budget committee. What do you, take a look at this, discuss it, and then we can vote on it.
Yeah, hey, Lisa, just to build on what you're saying, shouldn't, when they come through the budget committee, shouldn't they also identify what they need for contracts for the following year and which ones exceed the $5,000 and then start the process as part of that point?
they do.
Yeah.
Jake.
And
If
I,
they know
yeah,
they're
and
gonna
I
get that.
do
But
think.
no, they obviously don't, because since I've been on this board, I've seen bid waiver, bid waiver, bid waiver.
Evelyn's.
Well, I just, when I did events, I had so much money.
Right.
I would negotiate the prices with the bands. If I saved money, if we did a silent auction and earned money that year, and they needed stuff, there's money left over, they needed stuff for the next year, like stuff for carnival, games for the kids. I didn't have to come to the board for that.
It's
I know it's not a difference.
it's a big difference.
I'm just saying, there are certain things, if it's within our budget, if we save money somewhere else, not everything was a line item on the budget. Not everything is a line item on my geese budget. I don't put that I bought 2 remote control boats.
It shows up.
No, yes, you did. You discussed that at a board meeting and you also went to the board and you asked the board, I want to spend $1,000 on drone and drone insurance. You tabled it the right way, Evelyn. You did the right thing.
So is there a
because-
happy medium between whatever somebody would can be construed as micromanaging and like, I don't see somebody sending an email saying, hey, I this isn't in the budget, but I need to do it. What do you guys think? That's not micromanaging. That's accountability.
Thank you.
But
No.
but there's certain thresholds that, Phil mentioned garbage bags, and I know that's not what we're talking about,
Not
but
even close.
is there a threshold? And Dave Edgington, I'm asking you specifically because you have experience in this area, but do we say that, if there's something that's more than $500 or more than $250 or whatever it is, like, I don't spend $50 without talking to my wife.
Yeah, no, I think we need to find common ground, and I think that Phil will do anything that the board asks him to do, but I'm in the corner with him where I'm very confused about the rules. All right, so I get the $5,000. Now let's talk about, and Lisa, a budget to me is a living document. It can move. We just can't go outside of what the parameters are. You
Right.
can move it from this column to that column. That's why I'm saying a living document. Now, I think if we tell Phil, look, anything over $1,000, we would like you to come to the board and discuss it. You need to give him a dollar amount. And I think that's a big part of his aggravation is he's not understanding the gray area. And actually, honestly, I'm not either.
I'm not either.
But I think
But that's
Yeah.
what the process is, right? So I think that's what we're doing here. So we need to determine a process so that we know who to hold
Right.
accountable to.
Absolutely.
They know what they're accountable to. And so there's not, the back and forth with what should I do? I'm sorry, Julia, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. I do have a question, Dave. So we hire landscapers and we hire tree services. So, and I've been, Lisa, our treasurer, Hober, he provides us with all the financial documents and I've been reviewing them. Why did we buy a chainsaw and why do we buy pole saws? I see those as liability items. Anyone's going to use those. If we own them and they're going to use them, we're going to be liable. And if we're hiring landscapers and tree guys, why are we buying pole saws and chainsaws?
Did we ask the person who bought them?
Phil
Did we
bought them.
ask the person who bought them why we bought them?
We can't because, wait, Craig, we can't because we don't find out about it until I see at least the paper.
Fair, but what we're here to do is fix that issue. What I'm saying is if we're going to use these as examples and we really don't know why they were purchased, then did we ask the question, why were they purchased?
I'm asking it now because I never have an opportunity because Phil left the meeting. I'm asking Dave. Maybe Dave knows.
Right. I don't know why he bought it, but it's certainly a good expenditure. If you start talking about liabilities, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Lots of stuff that we do, you're not going to give a chainsaw to a 3-year-old or a 12 or 15-year-old kid, that he probably bought that for him or me or Gary if we're out doing some work, an adult who understands, there's common sense here. You gotta keep the common sense in play. You're running. Why would you pay a contractor to come in and prune a branch if Phil can go out and cut it off and prune it and be done with it, and it's not costing the association any money?
I agree, Dave. I'm the first one to do that. I will do that.
Okay. Yeah.
But listen, he told us he doesn't get on ladders and he doesn't use paintbrushes. But so,
Right.
so I'm just like,
What do ladders have to do with chainsaws? Hopefully you're not
Really?
using
What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
he doesn't do that stuff.
But I think
So I think that goes back to the process. We need to have a process with how we need this to go so that everyone understands. And if they're not complying, then that's a different issue.
Never mind what they're used for. Never mind what they're used for. That collection of expenditures came close between $1,300 and $1,500. So I think it's about the expenditure. I think that's where this started.
I think it was that if I'm not, wasn't it like a variety pack of Ego battery operated blower, trimmer, stuff like that? That's
Yes, it was.
One of us should have a garage anyways, right? But it was there so that he could blow off the patio and trim things around the property that need to be. So again, shouldn't have done it without moving forward. You won't do that again without getting approval.
So you were looking for a threshold, a dollar amount. I don't think anybody's looking to have any committee nickel and dimed, or you need to ask your consumables, nuts, bolts, bags, whatever. But I mean, if he wants to go out and buy 8 gas cans for something, if that's talked about in a meeting, somebody here might say, "Well, I've got 4. Don't buy them. I've got 4 here." I'm just saying.
Amount that you feel is appropriate.
What's that?
Dave Edgington.
Yes.
As for
I'm sorry. I didn't hear your question.
Yeah, that's okay. What is a dollar amount that you feel is appropriate that we should say to someone like Phil, if you go above this number, you got to come to us? Like what in your world, because you've been involved in properties, what's the?
I think, I mean, I say $1,000, but maybe that's a lot of money. Maybe $750. Anything over $750, you need to come to the board and discuss it. And if you all disagree with that, let's just pick a number. I mean, that's my number. Maybe somebody else's number is lower.
My number's 5.
Jeff, do you have a number?
Well, this number that we're choosing is apart from the 5,000 figure that we're all talking about. In other words,
Really?
so the purpose of this number is for funny money that we need, that something you needed to spend it on. What are we talking, right?
Yeah, anything above that, you need board approval.
It should be $500 should be the cap. And I do agree with the confusion, because we either have a $5,000 cap at no need for bids, or we don't. And I clearly see, I can see both sides, but we can't have it both ways. We got to establish if Phil has $5,000 to spend and it's under $5,000, then there's no need, as way I interpret this, to have multiple bids.
Jeff,
That's
True.
Am I correct? Am I correct in all this?
Jeff, the 5,000 was for the purposes of us as a board being accountable to the membership, so that we can have a due diligence process in place that says, before we spend 5,000 or more of your money, we're going to go and get bids for requests.
I understand. So we got to negate what we've been just talking about for a freaking hour.
No, that's separate.
Right.
That was separate. That was for contracts. Now we're talking about expenditures within a budget that's been approved, and spending on things that weren't approved when they came to the budget committee. So
If you're going to talk about this number, please consider that you have bands that are upwards of 1,000. Now, are you going to want Lynn Butler to say, I want to get Savage Brothers and they're 1,200? Do you want Lynn Butler to check with you for that? Or I mean, you can't go per committee, like, okay, Phil's number's 5, but hers is $1,000. You can't do that.
There's the gray area. There's the gray
100%.
area.
right. Well, it's like,
I think
we're running a business, and each part of our business runs differently. So I think that's what we need to figure out. Maybe Lynn Butler runs where, her budget is, I think $7,500 this year. And maybe we say to her, well, your cap for bands is 5,000, do the rest, whatever. It's something,
Or we just let her run her budget and
But
fill
she-
That's right.
but
Amen.
if Lynn Butler came to us and said, I want to buy a Ferris wheel.
She's not gonna buy, but like,
But
yeah, I know, but like, that's nitpicking.
she's not gonna, exactly. So Lynn
So why is
Butler-
it different for Lynn than it should?
No, I don't think that is nitpicking, Craig. I would disagree. I think
If she
I
wants $2,000 on Savage Brothers and she fills the rest of her $7,500 budget, and she fills the events, and the events are good and have a great time, and she stayed within budget, what do we care how much she pays for each band?
I think it
Thank
goes
you.
back to what you were saying with
My point exactly.
communication. I think it's communication, right?
Right.
So here's my budget. This is where the dollars are going. That's it. It's not necessarily are you okay with this? Can I do this? It's
Yeah.
full
Do
transparency.
you know
Board
you know
and
that in the
communication.
bylaws, it says that each manager is supposed to give a monthly report to the board?
That's correct. And I struggle to get it, Dave. A lot of them.
But I mean, to your point about, and Lynn, your point about, if they just built what they're going to do for expenditures into their monthly report, it's a quick discussion and it's a done deal.
But we're not getting that.
But I have to reach out to each individual committee to ask them, are you coming? Do you have a report? And it just hasn't been happening.
So it is 8:20, almost 8:20. Are we at a point where we can make some decisions about this, or do you think we need to continue to discuss? Because we haven't gotten to committee expenditures.
And
Isn't
actually,
that kind of what we're talking about? Isn't that committee expenditures?
Yes, but we
That's
have,
that's what we're talking about.
we
Okay,
we
so I
did
thought we were still,
at 8 o'clock. However, we never talked about the final bullet on contract procedures.
signature guidelines.
Can I just make a quick statement on that? There are
Mhm.
people on this board who are very smart about contracts. I am not one of them. I don't care to know about contracts, to be honest with you. I think that if you had a couple of people on the board that want to review it and look at it and take that under their arm, I think that's a wonderful thing. But a good part of it is don't know and don't really care about being good at contracts. I don't say don't care, that's not a good word, but I'm not good at it.
I don't
And
care.
it's not my wheelhouse.
That's okay, Dave. That's okay. And like you said, we appreciate the folks that do have it in their will.
Right. Yep.
So I think again,
Well,
that's
Let
the
them run it.
difference.
I mean, let them review it. Come up with a subcommittee or something.
Or they could do the mechanics and, yeah.
Bring it back to the board, whatever.
But I think,
No, you said that best before. The people who want to provide feedback,
Yeah.
provide feedback.
do we need to at least make sure we document, because we agreed at the February meeting, right? That only the president has the authority to sign contracts? Do we
Well, I
still,
think, Julia, I think there has to be, if the president's not available, there has to be a delegate.
Right.
Vice
That's
president.
true, yeah.
It's the
the
vice
vice
president.
president, the vice
So,
president?
I mean, we'll document that as well, though. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And it does say it in our bylaws, Dave. If the president is unavailable or absent, the vice president assumes the duties. But agreed, if it's written in the financial policy, that's great.
But I mean, can we agree on that at least, and that gets done?
Yeah.
Because we need to give guidelines. Phil is asking for guidelines, so we have to
Right.
like give them to him.
I agree. Thank you.
And those contracts are any contract over 5,000.
No,
No.
It's fucking 5,000.
no,
No, it's any contract, but any contract over 5,000 needs 3 bids, Lisa.
Right.
So
Be accountable to the member.
I don't know how I missed that. Thank you.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, we're looking for guidelines for expenditures. You know, my shovel broke. I gotta go buy a shovel. Do I have to get permission to buy a shovel? I mean, let's give him some dollar amounts. Because I really believe that's what he wants. He's just looking for guidelines.
So 500, but Dave, I want to go back to just a little bit. So when there was a presentation to the budget committee, there was a category for tools and equipment. And so as long as tools and equipment stay within tools and equipment, but if it has to go above and beyond for whatever reason and more than $500, then know about it.
That's
So
fine.
being nitpicky,
No,
right?
I listen, if the board comes up with policies that are written down and say, here, Phil, here's what our needs are, he'll be okay with that. But believe me, I'm just as confused as he is. If I was running properties today, I would have no problem going out spending $1,200 for something that's going to be, something's going to be an expenditure. It's going to last, like the chainsaw and all that crap you bought. If I was doing that, I would spend that without approaching the board because it's in the purview of my budget.
Right, as long as, like I said, as long as he stays within, but so when he comes to the budget committee this year, have a better, feel for, what? I bought all these tools. Maybe I don't need $2,000 worth of tools this year. Maybe I only need 1,000 coming up because I already bought all these, like that's where he comes in and he uses his past expertise on what he needs and what he doesn't need.
And you need to talk about capital expenditures too. Anything that lasts more than 7 years is considered a capital expenditure, right? Picnic tables, that fryer that we bought, that'll last more than 7 years. That's all very confusing. I think that's stuff that we need to lay out.
Well, and those things we all talked about as a board.
Right.
And
We need to have written policies. That's all I'm saying.
I agree with you. That's what we're working on.
All right.
So are we gonna say right now, anything above $500 not budgeted for needs to be approved by the board?
Or he needs to bring it to the board anyway.
Or bring it to
Yeah,
the
I don't
board?
think, again, approval just sounds nitpicky.
Right.
We need
If
to know
it's, hey,
about
by
it.
the way, I'm gonna spend this on this and we need it, then,
Say notify the board.
Communicated.
Yeah, communicate to the board, right?
request feedback, because consent, what is it? Advice and consent is that what the
Advice
law
and
says?
consent. To guys, this just happened. That's why I keep bringing it up. I would have voted no on the fans. Okay, we never even voted on it. That's all I'm just saying is we need to know what he's doing, because I would have said, I don't agree with the fans. Let's put oscillating fans down there or something else and not spend thousands of dollars on it when we have major other areas where we need to be spending our money. That's all. So, I mean, that's a board member saying that. And I've heard it from other people are seeing the fans down there and they're going, why did we put fans in?
We talked about putting fans in when we built the pavilion. I mean, this is not a new subject. It's been around for many years.
Because people
But
are
not-
nuts.
Not prevalent.
Just, I as a board member didn't know we were putting fans up. We didn't vote on it.
I can't believe you didn't know. We've talked about it so many times
I would have
at
voted no.
board meetings. When Cindy was president, we talked about it.
But it was never approved. It was just like, oh, get pricing for it. And now you're at a board. I'm just saying, it's something that just happened.
Can we just
Move forward.
set,
No, I mean,
It's a communication thing. I think
Yes.
we're all agreed it's communication.
Yes.
We've set the 500. We got to write down what we expect from Phil. So
Okay, here's another way to look at it, Julia. Bill is expected to come up with projects that we need to do in the future. You know, we have a list of things. Now, say for example, the fans was one of those things on that list, okay? And it may not have been in this year's budget that he presented, but it was on future capital projects we want to work on. Well, if he realized that he had the money to do that, I don't see a problem with that. He's not he accomplished all the other stuff that he wanted to get done. The end of the year is here. Okay, we got some money left over we didn't spend. Let's buy the fans. It's something we've been talking about. These are things that make people crazy when they get nitpicky over that stuff.
again, Dave, it's communication, and there wasn't any,
I
and
hear
there
you.
wasn't any.
See, I don't agree with that. There was a lot of communication about those fans. I don't know why you all had your earmuffs on, but we talked about it at the board.
Not when it counted. When it counted was, hey, by the way,
Why are
I
we
knew
still
I had to
talking
get the
about
3 bids, but I
But
wound
why
up,
are we still talking about
but
it?
I
I'm
wound up
sorry.
with the
Thank you.
3,500.
Get done with it.
Let's
Move on. Let's move on.
So can I ask a question? The $500 that we all agreed upon, that is for,
we all agree.
We're talking about communication.
Right, but we all agree, so let's just
we
move on.
communicated it to death. Do we
Right.
move
Let's
on?
move on.
Seriously.
Let's move on.
for catches what Dave said. I don't know that. So
clarifying question, the $500 we all agreed upon, we're talking about properties, we're talking about Phil, but that would apply, someone said it here, that should apply across the board. So for events and
Of course it
for,
should.
It can't apply across the board.
It
That's the
can't. We
point.
have different functions of our business that we deal with. So it can't apply across the board. Perhaps each,
Now you're being nitpicky.
Yeah.
That-
If you make a rule, it needs to be for everybody. You can't, you're picking people out. If we're gonna make a rule, it's gonna be for everybody. I do not agree with
Lori,
having different
Lori, I
rules.
think being consistent on the rules also encourages people to come to the monthly board meetings and discuss what they're thinking about.
that's good. point.
I agree, Dave.
That's a good point.
That is a good point.
I mean,
It's
it just encourages something you've been trying to achieve anyway.
What do you think about making the number 1,000?
yes.
1,000, well, no, let me finish. 1,000, but because that's what you're kind of like going with if that's across the board. I mean, if she wants to go 1,200 for Savage Brothers, she just says, hey, that's going to be 1,200. Everybody loves them and we all go yay. But, or you all go yay. But if you say 1,000 to Phil or anybody else, that's with discussion. I mean, let's give some good faith hopefulness that, communication, that word communication has been beaten to death and that Phil would be more communicative. And additionally, if he's not, you're the board. So if he comes to a meeting and you don't get the information that you think he should be forthcoming, then you ask the question, Phil, do you have anything in the shoe? Do you have anything in the, you can ask questions to a person to get them to solicit the information you're looking for. But just say that the communication needs to get better both ways. But if you make that number $1,000, nobody feels like they're nitpicked. And my committee's got 500, but that one's got 1,000. Just my thoughts.
Yeah. It also helps with emergencies.
That's what I said originally was 1,000. I agree with you, Lisa.
Dave, you said 1,000, well, no, actually you said 750. Can I ask?
No, he said
No,
1,000.
I said 1,000 originally. Originally, I said 1,000.
So
But again,
I,
it's not for approval, it's for communication. Hey, I'm spending more than $1,000. It's within my budget. It's needed for such and such. Just letting you know that this is what I'm doing. Where this becomes a problem is when somebody it has to blow over their budget. Then you need board approval. But if you're staying within your budget and you're doing things that are for the common good, that are easily understood and explainable, then all you're doing is communicating. Hey, I'm spending $1,200 on Savage Brothers. Just want to let you know, I'll stick to my budget.
So can I ask?
So we're
Evelyn's been waiting.
Yes, please, thank you. So my budget is what, 5,500?
For events?
Yes. No.
Well, for these.
And to save money, I drive around the lake almost every day looking for those geese so that I can save money for when there's nests, for when I need nutmeg farms to come out, for when I need to replace the remote control feed boats. The fence at First Beach is trashed. Absolutely, it's been mowed over, parts of it's missing. I mean, do I have to come to the board and say, okay, I saved money?
Is it in your budget? Is it in your budget?
I didn't write it down. Most of it is just for geese mitigation.
Then it's in your budget. It's geese mitigation. It's a geese mitigation.
No, but
Fence is not in my budget. I did not write that when I.
But Evelyn, when you wanted to buy dogs or swans or fencing, you came to the board and you said, I'm spending money on this. I know that you save money for driving around. Why don't you use the drone? Because then you wouldn't have to drive. But
It's been too
Is the
windy.
fencing more than $1,000? No, it's little fencing. So then the answer to your question, Evelyn, is no, you don't have to come to the board.
But
It's
if
in
I
your budget.
Find the fences. If I found a fence that met my needs, that was more than $1,000, I have what, $3,500 left?
Well, the point,
No, ma'am.
the question you're asking,
I
Evelyn,
think
No,
I
you
do.
don't. No, you don't.
the question you're asking is, it's back to the $1,000.
I'm just saying, we need to be consistent.
You have to spend your money doing your role as the geese mitigator in chief to the best, where you think you can deploy your dollars the best, that's where you should spend them.
so I think too, we need to, whatever the dollar amount is, 500, 750, $1,000, whatever that is. I think it should be across the board with anyone that has a budget. And so I think several of you said, no, we can't.
agree.
I think I need you to educate me as to why we can't.
Well,
that's why we
Maybe
went to
just-
1,000. We went to the 1,000 because that's more, I think, that can go across the budget.
right. And I guess, Lisa, for me, like some of our committees are basically contractual only, like Elquick. Shouldn't spend anything that's not a contract. So you really can't,
Things like.
I guess well, then we just need to have different language. So whatever that dollar amount is, whether it's 5 or 1,000, it doesn't matter really. It's who has the ability to use that at their discretion. Is it folks that come to the budget committee with a budget saying, this is what I need to do, this is what I think it's going to cost?
Anybody with a
Those
variable,
people, hold on, then those folks would say, or we would say, you've got, okay, yes, and then here's your $500 or whatever it happens to be to do with what you think you need to do. I just don't think
But
we
they're
should
not-
say Evelyn gets 500, Phil gets 1,000, Lynn Butler gets
no,
Okay.
no,
but we're
no.
not saying,
no.
50. That's what I don't want to see. We can't do that. It's too much maintenance. It's too
what
much.
we're saying is that if you're gonna spend within your budget, if you're gonna spend more than $1,000, you need to communicate that to the board.
Right.
That's
Very
it.
good.
We're not saying the board has. Yes, I think you can spend it. It's, you're managing your budget and you're being accountable to your board, advice and consent to the board. You're saying, hey, in my 40,000 or 5,500 or 7,000, in my budget, I'm gonna spend $1,200 on X, Y, and Z. I just want to let you know, I think it's needed for X, Y, and Z. And that's it. All we're doing is staying and giving us
Communicating.
feedback opportunities.
And if there's an emergency that has come up and we
Yes.
say, but we have an emergency.
Like erosion on the
Yes.
beaches.
And we don't want you to spend that money now because we have this major issue. That's why you need to communicate so that we can say, please hold off on that. We need to put the money over here because we have a.
And that's our role as a
all.
board. Correct.
Exactly. That's all we're trying to.
Then we need to determine what that dollar amount is, and it needs to be consistent, right? It needs to be consistent.
$1,000.
1,000.
Motion.
Motion, we
Wait,
make
this
a
is
dollar,
official
we get
Robert's rules.
$1,000.
I second.
Yes. Official meeting.
I second.
All right.
Okay.
All in favor?
No,
Sorry,
we need
Lori.
discussion, don't we? Oh, yeah, aye.
Is there discussion?
We're,
No, you have to ask it again. After
Yes.
yeah, I don't know that I heard. So what was the motion? I'm sorry,
All right.
Evelyn.
And there was too many people talking at once. So can you please repeat it, Evelyn?
I make a motion. Spending, anything spent in any committee over $1,000 needs to be communicated to the board, not necessarily approved.
That's not
Before.
contractual.
Before it's spent.
Before it's spent.
Okay.
Before. It's
Is there
spent.
discussion?
All right,
Yes.
I
Yes.
seconded it, so.
So you and Dave both have discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Dave, you first.
No, I was just gonna say, they need to, bring it to the board and communicate it to the board.
And the
Before-
board-
yeah, I agree.
Before
Before
it's
it's
spent,
spent.
they're
Yes, before it's
advised. The board is being advised by the committee chair, and then the board does need to give consent because what I just said, if there's an emergency and we need to spend the money somewhere else, they might not know about it. And we'll say, please table that expenditure so we can put that money towards a major issue like the erosion that we're seeing this year all over the place. We did
Right.
talk about that.
Right.
So we're all in agreement. $1,000 is our threshold.
Yes.
So now, but that's going back to board approval, and so that comes back to the nitpicky conversation, and then that comes back to, if it fits within my budget, why can't I spend it?
So
If it's within the, if it's within the parameters.
wait a minute. So emergent first.
No,
So,
time out.
period.
No, time out. Hold on a sec. We're talking about somebody has a budget.
yeah.
Okay, and inside that budget, they want to spend 1,200 of it on something. And what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if I want to spend $1,200 and I bring it to the board and say, hey, I got to buy something, it's going to cost $1,200. It's in my budget, right? And it's for this purpose. And you're going to then say, as a board, no, hold off. We have an emergency. We're going to steal from your budget and send it
Yes.
somewhere else.
Yes.
No.
No.
You're saying that if within that budget, and let's talk about the erosion. If the erosion is properties.
Reallocate on a case by case basis. If there's an emergency, you stop everything and you say,
Right.
we have an emergency.
That's what we're doing.
No, well.
All right, wait, I'm gonna stop you right there, because right now in the works is, we're trying to find the money in our operating budget to fix Third Beach.
Yeah.
We're looking at
And,
Elkwood,
and your beach,
And we're
and your
looking
beach
at-
too.
And
North Reserve, don't worry, and yours too. That's a major problem.
so this is an emergent issue.
Yep.
We have to exhaust our operating fund before we touch capital reserves.
But this is a new issue that just came up.
Yep.
And nobody is coming to us saying, I need to spend $1,200.
No.
Nobody is.
Right.
So now what we should be doing as a board is we should be ripping apart the budget and saying, where can we find the money? Which is different
Right.
from
Right.
Ellen coming and asking for money to put in fencing because it's within her geese mitigation budget.
It
It's
is.
totally different.
Okay, well,
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to be proactive, why wouldn't we go out to the committee chairs and say, we have currently an emergency situation and this is what we're doing. Please hold off on any expenditures in the interim.
That is the intent. And actually, I just asked for, Corinne, she just emailed me. I asked her, how much are you gonna, do you foresee spending to June 30th? We're looking for the money now.
But that's not what the motion was.
okay, you're right.
No.
That's right. We need to vote on the motion. We need to vote on the motion. Call the
Agreed.
vote.
An example, though, of what is happening behind the scenes with this emergency. So this is something that is real, it's something that can happen, and it's something that will curtail if you have, I'm gonna say, fat in your budget that.
Lori, this is now we're talking, we need to call the vote. We've had a vote, we've had discussion on it. We need to call the vote.
we were having discussion, but I think I'm confused. I think you're right, because to your point, we would know it's an emergency. Evelyn's coming in, she's advising us. So her motion would carry, but then we have to have this other procedure about emergency situations.
But
So,
we
but-
should be driving.
right.
it with-
Yes,
So
yes.
that's what
So
you
I
repeat
think,
your motion.
That's what your reserve fund. We have a reserve fund, folks. We're not, we can afford to fix the beach. We have a reserve fund. Let's not tear people's budgets apart.
We can't.
Well, you can't just go in the reserve fund. You have to exhaust the
That's what it's
operating fund
for.
first.
All right. Well, we're getting off course here. We've got a vote. We've had a vote and a second. We need to call the vote.
But Evers,
This is why we don't get anything done on this board. All we do is talk.
Did
We don't
anybody
decide
say-
anything. We just talk about it. Let's call the vote.
This motion.
I'll second Evelyn's motion with Dave's
I already
addition.
seconded it. I seconded it. Yeah, go ahead. You second it, Greg. That's fine.
Come to us before you spend the money. Let us know what you're doing.
Okay, all
Thank
in
you.
favor? Aye, okay.
Aye.
All in favor, Lisa. Motion carries.
Got it.
So,
Next time I'm bringing a bottle of tequila.
Whiskey.
all right, so we will talk about emergency spending in our next financial meeting.
okay.
So I think we've kind of kicked this horse tight. If everybody wants to look over Exhibit A and B, that would be great. And if it's not,
Where do you find that?
I'm sorry.
I looked on the drive. I couldn't find any of that stuff, Lori. I don't know where Exhibit A and B will be found.
I'll email it up. It's
Thank you.
attached to all the contracts.
Yeah.
If you go to Properties Drive and look at some of his contracts.
I couldn't find it. It's my ignorance with the internet. That's all. Thank you for emailing it.
Yep, I'll email it out to everybody. It doesn't have to be in your wheelhouse. If there's something you don't understand or something you question, that's what we're
that's
looking at. And then I think Dave, Dave G, you're gonna come up with a
Yeah, a list of parameters.
okay,
Mhm.
and then you can email that out,
I will.
and then maybe we can hit on that at the board
Mhm.
next board meeting as well.
I'll try and get it out tomorrow.
Thank you.
We're gonna get guidelines.
So as far as the guidelines go, I think we'll draw up.
Because he's been asking.
Yes, and we know that. So we'll draw up a rough draft and we'll circulate that as well.
And really, the only guideline is the $1,000 spending. That's really the guideline.
Really it is, but it's also,
No, I mean, but,
Signatures on contracts, you can't sign contracts.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have the contract before you agree to the work. We have to see all that stuff.
right,
okay, all right, well, that's fair. But
Contract
but the
process,
gist of
we
it
get
for
to-
him, that what he needs to know is
right, he'll have basic guidelines.
just come to us before you spend more than $1,000. Come to us, tell us what you're doing, and we'll tell you if there's any problems because of things that he doesn't know about. And you can't sign contracts. Lori has to sign them.
And we need all the stuff before he agrees to do the work. The work does not happen.
Yeah, right.
All right, so.
So that's easy. That does- we don't even need a
Do you want to
draft.
create a draft on that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to, but I will.
I'll
Okay.
just put it down.
Yeah, we're gonna circulate.
And
it,
we're gonna
sure, yeah.
circulate it, yeah, so maybe just put a couple bullets,
Right.
and then start it, kind of like we did with the walkway committee, and I got nothing back.
You look at that.
Okay. All right, so I think Lisa, on
You
your,
send me your
on
first
your,
notice copy.
on your minutes, we have kind of 3 action items. Okay, and we can.
So, yeah. So we're all going to read Exhibit A and read Exhibit B. I've got Dave Giroux. He's going to provide a few lines or a blurb regarding contracts. And what's number 3? Is that the $1,000?
No, Julia's gonna draft a guideline and circulate it to the board for comment and
We owe Phil guidelines. He's been asking up for a long
It's
time.
committee. It's not so much, it's everybody.
Well, I know,
Right.
but he's
Yeah.
specifically been
He's
asking.
specific.
Yeah, and he's got the biggest budget. I
Yeah,
think
right.
that's why we keep saying Phil.
Yeah, right.
But he specifically asked for it, and we need to get those to our committee chairs.
Good.
okay. All right, it's before 9 o'clock and the girls are playing tonight, so.
All right.
Thank
Evelyn,
everybody.
Evelyn, I just sent you your spending fiscal year.
Bye.
to-
I got it.
I got
Lori,
it.
do you want to stop the recording, Lori?
Oh, thank you.
Just
Motion
come-
adjourned, yes, okay.
Thank you. Bye.
28 left, please.
Lori, do you want to stop the recording?
Yes, thank you.
I have hey, Lisa, don't go yet.
Lisa,
Which
don't
one?
go yet.
Lisa.
Hobart or
Well,
Sobey?
I've got a,
Sobey she wants.
I got a voter registration form,
Oh, wait, hold on.
It's,
Okay.
and it's supposed to be approved